Hey, welcome back to the show. This week, we're looking at a 75-year study on happiness that Harvard did. And the answer to happiness is not what you think.
Then what is it?
I don't know. You're going to tell me.
No, we're really excited about this episode because we're going to be talking about the science of happiness, and we're going to be sharing some pretty shocking statistics and research with you. At least for us, it really hit home, and I can say this is partly from our own lived experience about what we thought happiness was, what we thought fulfillment was, and having accomplished a lot of things that people would say, you know, these are the metrics of success. And when you have this and go there, I like to think of it in the entrepreneurial space that I was in. It's like the Emerald City, the happy life. We're all on this, yellow brick road to the Emerald City where everything is going to be better and it's all going to be happy and roses and sunshine. And a lot of people seem to think that, the secret to success is secret to happiness.
Okay. So like if you're listening on YouTube, I would just be curious what you think, like just knee jerk, like what is or put in your head, like what do you think the success metrics are to happiness? What's going to produce happiness for you in your life? Or maybe just taking just a moment and pausing and going, okay, what am I pursuing? What am I thinking that's going to bring me happiness and success? What are my daily actions around that?
Yeah. What's my Emerald City?
What's my Emerald City? And
maybe that's a great analogy.
No, I agree. And it just makes me think of the little guy behind the curtain.
Oh yeah.
Pulling the levers. But 100%. I mean, that's exactly right. So take a minute, think about that. What am I chasing? What are my actions? What would you say? As you think about that, what would you say are some of those metrics that maybe out of our own life that we've pursued?
I would. I'm going to have to rewind because now I have different metrics. But
yes.
If I would rewind from 5 years ago, I would have told you like having a 7-figure business, having some sort of bestseller book, top podcast, something about winning, being the best at something.
Success is winning.
It's winning. It's winning. If you're not first, you're last.
Whether that's
Ricky Bobby. So I just quote Ricky Bobby on our show.
Yeah,
I sure did. If you're not first,
good.
You're last.
I don't know what to do with my hands. Just honest. Like I'm on a spaceship.
But 5 years ago, I would have told you it was being recognized for something, having a certain amount in my bank accounts. Oh gosh, it feels really shallow, but these were the things that I felt like if I had those things, of course I'd be happy. So I could look at my old Pinterest boards and see the big spacious house and the, quartz countertops and that bathroom, those vacations. I could pull out old vision boards.
The new car, work-life balance, time freedom.
Yes. And then if I have all those things, I think I had this very insidious equation in my mind. It's the if-then equation. If I have all those things, then I won't feel disappointment. Life won't be so hard. Then life won't be so hard. I think that was the equation I was subconsciously living my life out to, is just if I have all those things, life won't be so hard.
That's interesting. You have the if then. Mine was the if I can just get here. If I can just get to this job. If I can just get enough for this. If I can just put enough away. If I can just have enough free time. If I can just have the right hobbies, then this is going to happen.
Then you're going to be happy and fulfilled.
Right. And it's always behind the next thing. And so I'd get that, right? I'd be like, okay, here it is. I got the just, whatever it is. But there's another hill to climb.
Yes. What was that book? Was it in The Psychology of Money with Morgan Housel where he's like, the sign of maturity and growth is when you stop moving the goalpost?
Yes.
And it's just, there's something to that. And I think we are conditioned to always be moving the goalpost. If people are like, why am I so unhappy? I'm like, maybe because you keep freaking moving the goalpost of what you think, it takes to get there to, experience happiness and success. And this is why we wanted to talk about this kind of heavy topic on our second episode so early on, because we've walked it. So I got to the Emerald City and then I meet the wizard, who's an old man behind a curtain pulling a bunch of buttons. And I'm like, I've been bamboozled.
Pulling buttons.
pulling levers and pushing buttons. That's what I was trying to say. But I was just like, I've been bamboozled. Like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. In fact, now I'm more depressed because I've worked so hard to have the things, and the things aren't giving me what I thought they would. And so now, for a moment, I thought something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with me?
And not to mention, and we'll get to this will come later, but not to mention that in the pursuit of getting the just, or chasing the success from the viewpoint of society, there's certain things that you just cut out. You stop investing in.
Yeah. And
we'll get to what I mean by that a little bit later, but just think about, like, I'm going to chase this one goal, and whatever doesn't get me to that, I'm just going to cut out of my life to create space for continual, just more energy towards that.
Well, it's the hustle mentality.
Right.
It's just like, just put your head down, grind. And we feel very strongly about hard work and giving it your best and your efforts. But the endless hustle for the never-ending goalpost is a recipe for, I believe, burnout and chronic exhaustion. And, if you get to the place where you have the things, where the vision board, you're sitting on the accomplishment, or you have the things, you will experience the rude awakening that I did of like, oh, everything on the outside can't fix what's happening on the inside here.
Yeah, there's more to it. There's more to it. So kind of going on that lines, what we're going to talk about here in a minute is this idea that money and success don't actually guarantee happiness. And I think that's basically the root of what we're talking about, of where we were 5 years ago, that we were chasing money and success with the belief that getting those things, acquiring those things, is going to produce happiness.
Would you say that you were, though? Because I feel like you were the more grounded one that was constantly reminding me. You said so many times in the growing of that company, like, babe, I'll sell it all. I'm happy to live in a van down by the river.
That's mostly because I just really like to fly fish.
No, but you would say, like, we don't have to have this. We don't have to do this. We can live more simply. We don't have to. And I feel like you were trying to slow down the bullet train that I was on. So would you say that you were chasing the same thing I was, or what were you chasing? I'd be curious.
That's not in our show notes. This is a surprise question.
Hey, but we said we were going to have candid conversations on this podcast.
That's candid. That's candid. No, I think that's true. I think it's true that I was trying to, I'm not sure if slowing down is the exact phrase I would use. In retrospect, yeah, I guess that's probably what it was. I think it was more just an understanding that, like, more isn't always better.
Yeah.
And whatever that more is, whether that's more influence, more revenue, more, more employees, as our team grew, they start to get more and more complex. And that's not a negative, but it is a negative when we start to realize that maybe we're not as grounded, or maybe things aren't as in a healthy place as much as we thought they were. And then also kind of thinking back to, I would say, understanding what is it that we're actually chasing. And I don't think we really had a clear vision of that at the time. And so I think that's part of wanting to slow down, or trying to slow down, was to get real and honest about what is it that we were chasing.
I think for me, it started from a posture of not even chasing. It was a running away from. Like, I wanted to run away from how much lack I felt, or the fact that our first, was it 7 years of marriage, we didn't have a day off together.
Yeah,
And
so in a lot of ways, we were chasing success for time freedom, for the ability to
just
create our own schedules. Yeah,
just see each other. It was just like, I remember telling somebody, hey, time freedom to me at that time was, I remember going to Home Depot on a Saturday and watching families do their thing. I'd be like, what's that like? What's it like to go do errands on a Saturday with your with your spouse, I didn't even know. And so for me, it was running away from how do I get out of this lack as quickly as possible. And then I think once, the money started coming in quantities I couldn't wrap my brain around, then I think it became chasing the next thing that, would give me this false sense of safety and security. And then I think it became, I'm so afraid of losing all my gains. And really, I just think fear was on my butt the whole time, to be honest. So
be honest.
David Beckham. So all that to say is we have tasted and known scarcity and lack to the point where, I remember when someone came to the salon when I was still doing hair and they brought a check for groceries and we needed it. And I remember thinking that was the day I decided. I'm not going to be the person people write checks for anymore. I'm going to be the person that writes checks. And I think there was something good about that. I think that was from a very pure place. But then I think my fear of the scarcity, and then just I bought all of the entrepreneurial propaganda of like scale faster, go bigger, now that you're 7 figures, be multi 7 figures. Now that you're multi 7 figures, scale to 8 figures. Now that you're 8 figures, now can you buy, how much are you exiting for? So that just became the rhetoric we were constantly around. And then we finally had, I realized.
Entrepreneurial trophies.
Yeah, I had the trophies and none of them had given me what I thought they would.
Yeah.
And so, and we're very thankful, but we have had to realign what actually matters and what fulfillment is, what happy and well is. So now that we know, success.
I would say now that we're on the
money,
journey.
We're on the journey. That's true.
Yes.
Like now that we know better, I could say now that we know better because we can do better.
Yeah.
Now that we know we've experienced that success and money does not guarantee fulfillment, and the rude awakening that was. What does? So what does?
Yeah. Well, that's the study, the Harvard study. Not that it's the only study, but this is the one that we just came across. 75 years following a group of individuals and interviewing them every year, doing blood work. Yeah. So this isn't just like, hey, how do you feel? Oh, I feel on a scale of 1 to 10. I feel a 9 today.
This is Harvard, man.
Like they're looking at your physiological, all these things, doing questions, asking about their well-being. And for 75 years, they've followed this group of people, and now they're on their second generation. And they're following the people that are now the second generation under those and seeing what's the impact of people's decisions. And they found 7 key areas. We're going to focus on 5. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about 5 today, but they found 7 key areas that were they related to contributing to a happy and well life. And we talked about this a little bit on their last episode, but the idea of being happy and well as opposed to sad and sick. And when I look and reflect on maybe our journey over the last 5 years, I think there's areas in which we thought we were happy and well, right?
Yeah.
We had the trophies.
Yeah.
Right. And not that we're like,
look at us.
Yeah. And I don't mean it that way by any means. I'm just saying like we were on that journey of chasing the trophies and filling the cabinet. And not that we had all of the trophies, but we were acquiring many of them. And I think by our standard, not knowing the study at the time, I think by our standard or our understanding or what society was telling us, we were happy and well. But as we compare it to this Harvard study, and I think where we kind of hit a wall, I think we were more sad sick, unknowingly. I
think there were a couple areas where it was obvious that there was some sad sick happening, but there were some I think it's insidious. I think it's quiet. I think it's so sneaky. I think we've even asked ourselves, and as we've observed others and, being a coach, we've said to each other, how self-aware are people actually? And I'd have to find the quote, but I came across like only 80% of people think they are self-aware. And statistically only, or
Okay,
like
wait, hold on.
85% of people,
Hold on,
70% of the time it works every time. So quoting Anchorman.
I just think that stat's hilarious because the other 20%, if they didn't answer they were self-aware, are they actually self-aware?
I would say then they are.
So that's do.
No, but
anyways.
it said, but a very
That's fascinating.
small demographic is actually self-aware,
Yeah.
which, I mean, is it that surprising? I mean, some people I know who would tout themselves as being super self-aware. I'm like, oh no,
She's talking about me.
no. But okay, going on with like self-aware. Where were we going with that?
Okay. Well, so Harvard study,
Oh yeah, okay.
right? So 75-year study and on happiness, and the answer on what contributes to happiness, some of the key markers from their study. I think we're going to discover more things as we continue this podcast, but is it not what you would think, right? And so you want to tell us about the 5 areas we're gonna jump into.
So the first one is really their first four all was summed up with like a healthy lifestyle, as I knock my mic, but a healthy lifestyle. So essentially it was, don't smoke, don't do it. The second was limiting alcohol.
Yeah, alcohol abuse.
And then the third one was maintaining a healthy body weight. It wasn't like be skinny. It was just maintain a healthy body weight.
Yeah.
And the fourth was move. As far as in the wellness, it was move. Specifically, there are benefits in research to walking 30 minutes daily, and I can attest to that. Do you know remember what you called my walks when I was dealing with anxiety and stuff?
Yeah, husky walks.
Yeah.
Got to take the husky for a walk.
Yeah, I told him, I was like, if you leave a husky in a house too long, it just shreds up all the furniture because it needs a place to like displace its anxiety. And I'm like, I have a husky inside of me that if I don't take it for a walk, if I don't get energy out, it just tears up everything inside. So there was a time when Scott would be like, do you need to take your husky for a walk?
I think you need to take the husky for a walk.
Take your husky for a walk. Mental health walk. It's a real thing. All right. So
all of those four, basically we're categorizing into physical health.
Yeah. A healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Healthy, sustainable lifestyle. And then the next one, which I could see, I had so much data from all the patterns of observing, 8,000 students and being able to see like, okay, who are the ones that are creating results and who are the ones that are not, who's struggling, and it was this, it was emotional adaptive skills. And if you're like, what is that? I saw one statement that said essentially a person's capacity to take the lemons that life hands them, and turn it into lemonade, and not being like a toxic positivity person, or not just optimism, although there is a lot of studies behind optimism, but it's your unique ability to respond to challenges, setbacks, frustrations. When life ain't lifing, how are you showing up? What is or you can call it your resilience. What is your response to challenges? And this is something I coached on probably 90% of the time. Like 10% of it was the strategy. 90%, I was constantly coaching people on their adaptive skills when it came to handling things or, building their frustration tolerance. How long is it going to take me to do this thing? And I'm going to even call the adaptive skills, that's the gap. When we talked about in episode 1, like between the consuming the information and actually applying the information and implementing, we're like, where does it fall apart? It falls apart the moment someone doesn't have the adaptive skills to meet the challenge, to turn, lemons into lemonade when things don't go to plan. So adaptive skills, huge.
Well, the one that got me on that with the adaptive skills was the not just coping skills and so forth, but the idea of without excessive rumination.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that just hit me. I was like, oof, I'm pretty guilty of that. And this isn't rumination in the sense of just like ruminating on a conflict or ruminating on someone who's treated you wrong. I think also just ruminating on how I just exist in the world. Like if I go say hello to a cashier behind a register and like, I think about it afterwards. I'm like, oh, do you think that was weird? And then it just consumes my mind like forever.
Does that happen to you a lot?
Kind of. Yeah.
I think sometimes I've had to get you out of loops. I remember seeing that and being like, oh, I think you're overthinking that. Or you're just like, you know what? I think you've had those moments, but I think this is a really wonderful thing about you is you're a very empathetic person and you often think about how you're coming across, how you're communicating with others. Whereas I can sometimes be brash. But you're like, I think I need to say a message and be like, hey, just so you know, I didn't. I'm like, no, you're overthinking it. It's fine.
So does that put me into the category of the self-aware?
I think you are an incredibly self-aware person.
Oh, look at this.
But we've worked hard. Like, I also think marriage is a form of holding up mirrors to the other person. Like, but also doing it with compassion. And, you see yourself. I see my flaws and areas I have to grow when you and I are interacting and lifing. Yeah. So emotionally adaptive skills, huge. And there's some things we're working on that I'm so excited about with that.
What are we working on?
We can't say.
Teaser?
I know. It's like I know how to tease an audience.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So emotionally adaptive skills. And then the next one I think is so good. It's holding the posture of being a lifelong learner, not taking into account, never seeing yourself as the master of anything, but always understanding there is room for improvement. There's room for learning. And I do think our personal development world, I do think they've got that one. Well, actually,
I think they've said they've read that.
Say more. Unpack that.
Tell me more. Say more. That's a good phrase, by the way. Say more. I think that, and I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of this too. You start to hear someone speak on something, and if you get a trigger word or you get a word that you have read in any book, it can be a concept, a word, whatever. I think we automatically just go, oh, I know that. I've heard that before. I know everything there is on that. I don't need to learn that anymore. And we click it out. Yeah, we disengage. We stop, we close the mind. Or if they start to bring a different bent, we're like, that's not what I just read. So they close their mind, it's done. I don't need to do anything with that anymore. There's nothing to learn there. Yeah. So I think that's where I would go with that. It's just a sense of, sometimes we put a box around certain things because it helps us categorize and it helps us exist in the world. And sometimes it can do a disservice to us because we then close the box and put it on the shelf and just let it get dusty.
Yeah, that's good. That makes me think of a certain little person in our life.
I got distracted in my thoughts because I literally was thinking about our conversation yesterday. And we were trying to have this conversation, a little intervention, if you will. And with
one of our kids. Just parenting.
I know. You haven't heard that before, have you?
I know, Mom. I know.
You great parents out there. Yeah, that was exactly what was coming to my mind as I was thinking through that.
And we know, and when she's saying that, she's disengaging from the opportunity for growth, and
running away from what we were just talking about earlier today about growth edge.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we're trying to help you grow, and of course it's uncomfortable. It's not going to feel good, and I think that is when we say, I know, because then if I don't know, then I am forced into potentially seeing myself as maybe I don't know. And especially if you pride yourself on being someone who knows.
Read that book.
I'm a knower. I'm in the knowing.
Yeah.
If that's how you create safety for yourself in the world is I know, then there is some unsafety, emotional and mental unsafety that happens. Vulnerability when we maybe have to entertain that maybe we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we don't. And especially if it's in an area where we pride ourselves in knowing. And so I believe the posture of lifelong learning is a lifelong posture of humility, a lifelong posture of there is still growth for me. And I wonder if we could always be in the posture of always seeking a sage, like a wise sage, being like, all right, what do I know? Better, it's so much better to be an honest idiot to say, I don't know.
Be honest.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Than to be an ignorant one.
Yeah. An example of that is I went on a solo retreat. Solo meaning I went by myself. Kristen wasn't with me. And Speaking of a sage,
That's where I got it from.
I know. That's why I'm saying this. Speaking of the sage, I do think this is going to sound very prideful and it's going to be almost like an oxymoron, but I do think I am pretty humble. That's super weird to say.
Okay.
But here's what I'm trying to get. It's so
You're
awkward
so
to say
humble.
that. I'm so humble. I do think I carry myself with some humility. And one of the things we would do every morning is we would do a meditation. And her name is Kat. She would guide us through this meditation in the morning. And the way that she would guide us through it was amazing. It was great. But the thing that hit me was at the end of every meditation, she would end it with, and soften my gaze. And I think I'm very self-aware. I think I'm very, I walk through the world in a certain posture. And I remember the first time she said that on our meditation, and our eyes are closed. And so I'm not looking at anyone. My eyes are closed. I'm caught in meditation. But the minute she said, soften my gaze, I could feel myself hear it. And then I could feel my face feel it and start to soften. And so the reason I say that is I think sometimes we think we know everything. We think we know all the things. I know what it's like to be humble. I know how I'm supposed to act, whatever. But simply the idea of the physical softening of your face is an act of humility, not walking through the world with a chip on your shoulder or with pride or being the aggressor, right? But having that hit you in a way where I have the ability right now to soften my gaze, which tells me my gaze is not softened. But I thought I was so self-aware.
Oh, that's so good.
But I wasn't.
That makes me think of the meditations where it's relax your shoulders, soften. For me, it's always soften your jaw. And that's, I'm
that
always,
just got me.
Yeah. Well, and me, I have TMJ. And so I'm always subconsciously clenching. So when somebody says soften your jaw, it's it's subconscious. I don't even know it's happening. So again, this is where I think our emotional adaptive skills like self-awareness, lifelong learner, it's just sometimes we need someone to come in our life who's older, wiser, not sometimes, all the time.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, soften up. Soften up. Maybe there's a lesson here for you. And so I think anytime we are learning a lesson, it is a posture of softening.
Yeah, that's so good.
Softening up.
Okay. So we have physical. So back to the Harvard study, we have physical.
Yep.
Which is basically 4 things in one.
Yeah.
And then we have adaptive skills.
The emotionally adaptive skills.
And then we have lifelong learning. And then we have one more.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to go down this road a little bit here.
Yeah. This one is a biggie. Relationships. Strong, meaningful connections and relationships. And I think we can hear that.
I got that.
Especially because we're a culture that is constantly surrounded by, at least online, you can shout to anyone in the cosmos and someone will comment or respond or somewhere, we're just constantly surrounded by people or noise and think we're connected, but we're actually the most disconnected generation that there has been. And it's so fascinating. We're so connected by our devices and yet also so disconnected, in fact, that the World Health Organization said, there was the loneliness epidemic. I think in 2018, it was a health crisis. And
is it 2018? Because that's fascinating because that's even before
it was
COVID.
before. That's why I remembered it because I was it's before COVID. How fascinating. But I think it was social media was already creating
the gap.
Doing its thing. And so, in fact, do you want to say the crazy statistic about loneliness?
Yeah, so this is crazy. I think
this floored me.
I don't really know what to do with this because if you grew up in our era, we had say no to drugs, which we know, if you know that, didn't work very well. So they stopped that. But all that to say, this is crazy to me because this stat says that loneliness is as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
That is wild.
I mean, I'm going to ruin this part, but it also, that study continues to talk about that it is, it's as bad for your health as all the leading things that we're all trying to get away from in terms of dementia and cholesterol and all these pieces.
Yes, it has a higher comorbidity rate than alcohol abuse, obesity, and I think it was heart problems. Wild.
So so let me read this other quote because I was going to butcher this. So it's the quality in our relationships, meaning if you don't have quality relationships, you're probably in loneliness. So the quality of our relationships at 50 is a better predictor of your health at 80 than your cholesterol levels.
That's okay. Say it one more time for the people in the back.
Yeah. So the quality of your relationships at 50 is a better predictor of your health at 80 than your cholesterol levels.
That's wild. So here's the thing. I can hear somebody saying that and being like, loneliness, that like, actually, in fact, I posted this statistic on Threads and
what did
someone
came
tromping in and they were like, loneliness is a figment of your imagination. It's imaginary. I'm like, you want to tell that to the World Health Organization? And someone was like, loneliness is a great thing. We're like, hold on. And you said this really well to me. It was just, there is a difference between lonely and alone.
Yeah.
And lonely is a sense of like, you can be in a room filled with people and feel deeply lonely, like, which means feeling unseen, disconnected, but you are not alone. And being alone can be a healthy form of recharging. You're gaining perspective, reflection. I mean, my God, don't we as a parent sometimes need to like, I got to lock myself in a bathroom and be alone for like 5 seconds. Like,
that's it? You only need 5 seconds?
No, I need
we're
longer.
going to start the clock now.
10 minutes. But, I need alone time. And it's important. I mean, Jesus himself went off into, he sought alone time all the time.
Yeah, but he wasn't lonely.
But he wasn't lonely.
Yeah.
So this is the idea of like, and I will say this idea of, community and connection and relationships. I think you and I, that really was an awakening for us post-COVID, because here's the thing. We went into COVID as, Kristen and Scott, we didn't have a lot of time together. You were working your full-time job. I was working my full-time job as a hairstylist. So then we entered the pandemic, and then my life became very online. Mm-hmm. I think a year into it, you decided to come and join me in my business and help me manage it. And so our life was rapidly changing. That I remember when the world started opening up again, and people were like, I guess we can like hang out or whatever. We're in Colorado, so it wasn't too bad. But when we started actually engaging with people, it was like you and I had emerged. Like we were completely different people. And so we were like, how do we connect? Who do we connect with? People didn't know what to do with us. They're like, hey, so last time I checked, you were a hairstylist and you were doing this, and they didn't know what to do with us. And I will say, and this is so important about loneliness. I was very, I had a platform that was growing. I was on stages. Do you remember when we were at Disneyland? That was the most random, weird moment of my life. I was in the gift shop.
I'll never forget that.
Oh, this still goes on with loneliness, but do you remember? God. Do you want to say from your perspective? Like,
okay, so if you've ever been to Disneyland, they have this gift shop that is forever long. Mm-hmm. It has every toy you could ever imagine. And to get through that shop in under an hour, like I don't even know that your kids just want to grab everything. Well, so we're working through this gift shop. It's in downtown Disney. And I think this was our first time taking the kids to Disneyland. And and we were in a particular section, and a woman came up to you and just was like, oh my gosh, I know you.
This was after a long, uncomfortably staring at me.
Staring, like just following through the store, just staring at you from the distance. And the point where I think you came up to me a little like,
I was a little weirded out.
Yeah, a little weirded out. And so in any case, the staring continues. We're continuing down the long shop. And finally the person comes up and says, I know you, Chris and Boss, I know you. And you're like, I don't know you. I
didn't know what to do. Like my brain was like, does not compute. I was like, I don't know you. I'm sorry. I just was like, I became an incredibly socially awkward person in that moment. But
if you're listening, by the way, we're sorry. We did not know how to handle that.
It was weird for all parties involved. But all that to say is I was surrounded by strangers and somebody, quote, knew me.
Yeah.
But I was not known. Someone could say, oh, you're Kristen Boss. And there was this very weird reality where I was living where I was like, I'm well known, but not known in the way that matters. Like, and not well known in the world, but like in this little corner of the market that I was serving, it was just like, oh my gosh, you're Kristen Boss. And I don't say that, it was just a very weird reality for me. And at the same time, like there was a couple moments where I got really hurt and really disappointed by some people. And I moved into, so couple that with like being known but not known, getting deeply hurt by those that knew me and didn't know me. And my reaction was to shut people out.
Yeah,
I self-isolated.
Yeah.
And I had never really been that person. And then what happened was now I'm self-isolating to protect myself. And I'm also at the same time taking in social media, which is always divisive. But at that time, it was like a dumpster fire. Maybe it's always a dumpster fire. But at that time, what was happening was social media was feeding, kind of becoming a confirmation bias of why I couldn't trust people. Of like, look at how unkind, unfeeling people are. Look at the comments. And so the world became more and more unsafe for me to engage with. And I became that hermit to the point where I remember almost feeling paranoid, like getting paranoid, like they're out to hurt me. They're out to get me,
out to get you
angry until I finally joined a community. And you weren't there. And I had a moment where I stood up in front of 75 people I didn't know. I was so lonely and I was hurting so badly. And I didn't know what to do with that. And I said in that room, they're, like, hey, what do you hope for this weekend? And I just remember standing up, room full of strangers. My plan was to go there and just like disappear and like be like, hey guys, how's it going? And leave. And I stood up and found a microphone in my hand and I ended up saying like, I'm so angry and I'm so alone and I'm so hurt and I don't want to feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
So my idea to hide, like obviously completely backfired as soon as I said that into a microphone.
Yeah.
Because then everyone's like, let me hug you.
Let me hug you. Let me be your friend. We're so glad you're here.
But all that to say, I have experienced the deep ache of loneliness.
Yeah.
Well,
and coming back to the study, when at the beginning I talked about one of the things I think our society, the entrepreneurial, the people that are like, hey, you got to be driven, you got to be committed to your goals, you got to cut anyone out that's not going to believe in you. We bought that.
Yeah.
And this last point of the study from Harvard really hit us about community and relationships because I would say, knowingly but not, we just stopped investing in relationships that were meaningful but weren't, quote unquote, in line with our business.
Well, and at the time, it felt so exhausting. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, but we're building this business and we've got our kids and like, it really just was like us, the business, family, and that became this little silo of our world. And like you said, we didn't know we were sad sick in this area.
Right.
Until it started.
Until you get a few years down the road and you start realizing.
Yeah. And I become, I even remember you telling me that you had a chip on your shoulder at one point. You're like, I don't know how to do this with people. Like, do you remember telling me that? Being like, I don't know how to interact with people.
Yeah.
And so we both, after time, again, you don't know until years down the road. It's usually not like you isolate for a day and you're like, wow, now I'm a lonely, angry person. Yeah. No, it's like, some time.
And so that relationship piece, I think, was for us just kind of a big aha when it comes to this idea of like the Harvard study and happiness is not what you think.
Yeah.
Right. We don't think that. I mean, maybe you knew before we did, and way to go, you. We want to hear from you, but I think we bought what culture just drove. that you cut everything out that's not going to get you where you want to get. And gosh, did it get lonely.
Yeah, it did.
And so, you know, one of the other stats that comes from this is that the Harvard study says that relationships, quality, strong relationships, increase life satisfaction by, get this, 60%. And so if you're in an area right now where you're thinking, I just need to put my head to the ground, I just need to drive, I just need to chase after my dreams, I'm going to cut anyone out that doesn't agree with that, or I'm going to cut all the things out that don't contribute to that, let me give you a word of caution. Give you a word of caution that either it's going to demand this lack of a relationship, of investing in relationships that aren't quote unquote a part of your business or success strategy. Either your life is going to hit you in the face and demand you change that, or you're going to be very, very lonely for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I think of, you can go on and say like, I don't have time or energy because, you know, as some things we've been reading and talking about, it's like investing in relationships are not efficient. And when you're a business owner, you're all about efficiency. Being like, how do I scale this, leverage that, delegate that, automate that? And you cannot delegate, automate, leverage, outsource relationships. And it takes your most valuable resource, time. And I use that excuse.
And it's hard and messy.
And it's hard and messy. And people are going to disappoint you and say really bizarre, horrible things. And you'll be like, I'm sorry, say that again. Or you're going to have to look at yourself. And so I do think if you don't pay up, like pay now into your investments, it's going to come back on you, and there will be back taxes owed in the sense of like, there might even have to be repair that is made because of neglect. And we have walked that too. But we can say, thank God we found and plugged into community where it wasn't just about like, what's your ad spend and your revenue and like, what are you scaling to? Which is like,
that's how we do life.
What's your ad spend? Our podcast people can't see me doing my little.
I know.
I don't know.
This is why you need to be on
called
YouTube.
It like the truffle shuffle, but it's not. It's like the
oh my gosh,
the bro marketer.
So
rah,
good.
rah. But all that to say is like we got around people that cared about life, that actually cared about this idea of like happy well. We didn't know, and connecting, and like who are you as a person? Who are you in a whole? And had we not had that community, God, can you imagine 2024 without our community?
No, I can't actually.
No.
That would have been a
Your money doesn't get you through hard times. I believe your people do.
Yeah, that's right.
There was no money I could have thrown at 2024 to fix it. But there were people. There was our community that held us.
That's right.
Yeah. So on that note, woo, like we've shared some good, like I'm going to need a minute.
Yeah.
With what we
want us to sit in silence on YouTube here on the podcast.
So what now? What for our friends? Like,
yeah,
we're talking about the study.
There's a lot here.
Yeah.
There's a lot here, but I think for us, just because I think it's so close to our hearts right now, is this idea of like taking inventory of your relationships.
Yes.
Take an inventory of your friendships. Take an inventory of not just receiving, but also giving. And maybe the call of action today, aside from, we'll get into health and all those things later. But this idea of loneliness, the epidemic, the study, the impact on your health, which just think about that. We often just think that loneliness or, not having a lot of friends is only about our mental health, but like to see that it has a physical response is just mind boggling.
It's crazy.
And so maybe today is, if you're like me, you hate getting on the phone. I get that. But maybe today is sending someone just a message, sending a text.
I'm all about voice message these days.
Voice message, text message, dropping a note, writing a letter, but doing something to bridge the gap. Be the initiator. Maybe today the call to action is stop waiting and be the one who's going to initiate it. Be the one who's going to actually start the ball rolling.
Or don't wait for a crisis to decide you need community.
Yeah.
Do not wait for a crisis. Start now. And if it means sending a text and be like, I let life life. I let life get in the way of the things that matter. I miss you. Can we talk? Can we connect? There were people I had to be like, you know what? I put my head down a little too long, a little too hard, and maybe I forgot to look up and see you. And you want to talk about having to soften yourself. That was another area I had to soften myself and be like, I blew it. I'm sorry. Can we do better? And you know what? I have some of those friends where we can pick up the phone. It's been 3 years and we pick up the conversation like nothing ever happened. So yeah, our call to action today is connect with somebody. The next time you think about like canceling those plans, being like, I'm too tired to go out. Cool. Then grab 15 cigarettes because that's what you just did. Like you just got off Community, smoke a ciggy. It's just like, there are physical ramifications to continuing to isolate yourself. And then I think every canceled plan, you are sending yourself the message, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. And I could probably cancel the next plans too. And I get it. Life's hard. Relationships are inefficient. But the best things in life maybe aren't efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, aren't efficient.
They're not efficient, which is crazy for me to say because I'm always about like, you are the measure twice, cut once. I'm like, cut, make it work. About efficiency and shortcuts.
Truer things have been said.
All right. So
on that note,
knowing that our friends have to get back to their busy lives, let's send them on their way.
So real quick, Harvard study, things that you wouldn't maybe think that contribute to happiness: physical health, adaptive skills, lifelong learning,
and the strength,
quality and strength of your community and relationships.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
We'll unpack more of those on the episodes to come. And we're excited to continue this journey. And hopefully today you take something and you apply it to your life.
Yeah. Because again, this isn't about listening. We want you to go out and live well.
And live well. So if you're listening on YouTube, like, subscribe, click that little bell so you get notified on the next episode. And we'll see you as we continue this journey on creating a happy, well life.
We'll see you next time.